Hey guys, today we'll be learning about headers. In middlewares, headers, how can they be implemented in a Node.js application, Express application, right? So let's create a folder, say inventory management app, right? So we'll simply go here and we'll say npm init, npm init. Okay. Now we open our Visual Studio Code over here. Okay. So let's create a source folder. Let me know if it's visible or not. That would be great. So we will install a few modules, right? So npm install Express. Okay. So let's say app.ts. I'll be writing everything in TypeScript. So import Express from Express. Okay. Once app equal to express dot list. Okay, we need to install one more package. npm install types node. You can save, not save types node, save dev. So when you're working with TypeScript, it doesn't know the node types. So now we can say app dot listen on port 3000 and we'll say console dot log listening on port. Okay, so let's try to run this app using ts node. So I'll say ts node so slash app.ts. Okay, so we also need to include this. It was giving us the error earlier. Okay, so let's try to run this. Listening on code, perfect. So we have set up the initial thing. What I'll do is I'll keep the app running in Node even. Okay, so okay, great. So let's start writing our middleware. Or so let's just take an example that we have a request app.get login. Okay, I won't be creating the controllers and queries over here. So request type request from express response from response, and we say let's just change it to post console.log say uh, login request and say request.body. Okay, so we'll just log whatever is coming to us in the postman. Okay, so let's just say we did that. Okay, it's running. So let's no. So we also need to add the app dot use express.json to parse the JSON at our end. Okay, so it's running. So let's just say we simply create a new collection because I'll come up with a series for this inventory management app along with the front end server and the deployment as well. So how would we deploying this application on say either AWS, GCP, or Azure for that matter? So I'll just write it as inventory management app and we simply add a request, say login request. It will be a post. So HTTP colon slash slash local post 3000 slash log. Simple one. Now say log email say top at the rate gmail.com. Password, maybe we can write it out as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just a sample, nothing major. So this is the request that we are coming from. So we'll create one use case of headers, of passing the headers in our uh, open API request. Okay. Now understand that in this way that this API is completely open. Like anyone can come in. There is no restrictions on this API, right? So only the authorized front end or say authorized client can hit this API. So how can we do that? For that matter, we add a headers API in this part. Okay. So let's create that header. So what I'll do is inside source, I'll create a new folder, say middlewares. Okay. And let's just name it as headers.middleware.ts. Okay, so uh, we say export const headers middleware equal to request. So it takes three things: request, response, and the next function. That if everything goes well, what to do? Okay, like where to go next. So this will be a void function. Okay, but before we do go forward, we import the request response. Okay, now okay, so let's just say if request okay, but before doing that, let's console.log request.headers.authorization. Okay, let's log this and see what do we get. So to use this, we simply write before the app.post. So we say app.use headers middleware. Okay, simple enough, nothing tricky. We'll just log what do we get in our request. So our app is running, okay, and see we'll get undefined. That means we are not passing any headers. Okay, so let's try to pass some headers. So authorization basic auth and say username as Kaustubh login API, Kaustubh login password. So in real life, this is not the case. We don't write our headers, username, and password in this way. Just for the demo purpose, I'm writing it. So see, we got something. Okay. Now, what is this something? We are not able to see the data that is here, the username and the password. Correct. So what we'll do is we'll first extract two things from it. Okay. Now we extract. Okay. Now, first of all, we say if request.headers.authorization equal to undefined. So we just simply throw new error saying um, invalid authorization credentials. Okay. Next, we say that that's the base 64, right? So let's just say b64 auth equal to dot headers dot authorization. Now we split it. Okay, we don't need the bearer basic path, right? We need this actual data. So we split it based on a space, and we take the first element, like element on the first index, not the first element. Okay, and we convert it to string. Okay, let's see what do we get in the v64 auth. Okay, we simply rerun it and we save. Okay, great. Now we got only this part. Okay, so we don't need the toString because it's already a string. Now what do? We say const that as I said, that's the base 64 string, right? We need to convert that. So we'll get two things. What would we get? One, the username, another, the password, right? So let's just say this equal to buffer from B64 auth because that's the entire string that we have and we that is our base 64. Okay. And okay, like instead of doing this, we simply say actual data equal to this. We log it, actual data. Okay, let's see what do we get. Okay, we got the buffer data now. Now, in order to convert this to string, we simply say to string and we pass it again. So see, we got this as the login username, this as the login password. Not the login password, basically the headers username and password. So instead of writing this, what we could do is username and password. So we simply split that each thing into two parts. So we say dot split basis colon, right? Because we are getting a colon in between, right? So what we are doing is splitting. So this will be a first element, this will be a second element. And here username, like respective username, respective passwords get saved in here. Now we simply check if username equal to say Kaustubh login username and password equal to Kaustubh login password. Okay, if they both are equal, so we say go to the next function. Else throw new error invalid authorization credentials. Okay, so let's do it again. Okay, invalid authorization credentials. So I wrote it wrong. So username and still invalid authorization. Oh, my spelling was wrong. Okay, AUSPUBH. Okay. Now, now we should be able to see the console.log if the request was coming here and the credentials were wrong. You may notice our console.log request was not even happening. See, we are getting invalid authorization credentials. We are not able to go to the next level of the login API. Why? Because our headers middleware was saying that I'm not able to authenticate this user, so I won't allow him to go to the next API. That is what our next function is doing here. It is telling the headers middleware to go to the next function or the next thing that is there. So it will come here, right? So let's just see that are we able to use get the request body? Yes. Why? Because we provided proper credentials, username and password. We also provided request body, so it is able to go to the next login request that is here. Okay. So my like this login request is I don't want the login request to be open. Like just someone would write go into the console, get the API and hit our request, correct? I want to secure my login request by only saying that only the client that knows my authorization as username and password should be able to hit my API. Otherwise, I don't even, provide them to go here. Okay, so this is just a small use case of using a middleware. We can have multiple middlewares like authorization middleware, authentication middleware. Then we also have request body validator middleware. So we'll go through that when once we start using or creating the inventory management app. I'll come up with a series on this where I'll explain you best code practices, connecting with the database, creating schemas, and handling APIs, throttling those APIs, API limitations, and so on. So just hang in tight. probably by next week I'll come up with this. But just wanted to give a heads up on the series that is coming up along with the headers middleware. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you for joining.